Hey guys, it's Lauren. So recently on my Instagram, I posted this edit.
Hey guys, not gonna add the audio for copyright purposes, so I'm just gonna talk. You can watch it with audio on my Instagram at emo from Whoville. I'm sure some of you know that by now, but if you're new, that's my Instagram. Yeah, I was pretty proud of this edit. I tried some things I've literally never tried before. Didn't think I had it in me. Spent an all-nighter, and I was really, really tired, but it was worth it because I think it's pretty cool. Yeah, the weather is pretty nice today, so yeah, okay, bye.
And since then, a ton of you guys have been asking for a tutorial on the more advanced 3D components. So today I'm just going to walk through how to execute some of these transitions, and more specifically, I'm going to hone in on how to adjust your graph to make really smooth 3D transitions. So first, I'm going to show you how to do this rectangle cuboid type thing with colors around the sides instead of photos. Before we begin, I want to make sure you guys are on quarter resolution for a quicker playback time, and most importantly, turn on your motion blur. So first, you're going to add 2 photos down into your timeline. And as you can see, our photos and our composition itself are in the shape of a square. However, we need a rectangle for our cuboid. So to crop these into a shape of a rectangle, go up to Composition, New Composition. And I already have it here, but you want to make your height greater than your width. I like to do 1080 by 1500. Now go back to your original composition, highlight both of your clips, and hit Command-C on your keyboard to copy. Go back into your new composition and hit Command-V to paste them. Now I'm going to go down to Transform, and I'm going to adjust the position and scale of my photos in order to fit them into the dimensions of my new composition. If you want a more zoomed out view of your composition to make sure it fits correctly, you can zoom out here, so I'm going to change from 50 to 33.3. And as you can see, that helps me see the top here and the bottom. I'm going to do the same for my second photo. Now we're going to pre-compose both of our photos. Just right click and click on pre-compose. Click on this second circle and also make sure you're clicked on this square. Repeat the same steps for your second photo. Now highlight both of your clips and copy, and then paste them back into your original composition, and just delete the original pictures. Now on one of my photos, I'm going to hit S on my keyboard, and I'm going to decrease the scale value. I'm also going to move the position a little bit so it's right in the center of my composition. Now I want my second photo, which is in the back, to have the same exact position and scale values as this photo so that they're stacked on top of each other. So the scale here is 60, so I'm going to hit S on my keyboard and make the scale 60 as well. Now I'm going to hit P on my keyboard to go to the position values of both the photos, and I'm going to change the values of the second photo to make sure that they line up with each other. Now to add the colored sides, we're going to go up to Layer, New, Solid, and just click here to choose our color. So I'm going to do a light blue. Now hit S on your keyboard. I'm going to decrease the scale a little bit. And now click on this chain right here so that it disappears. So we can adjust the X and Y values of our scale individually to make it thinner. So just decrease this first value to make it thinner. So I want it to be this wide. I'm going to hit the chain again so that they move in unison. And I'm just going to decrease the second value until our solid layer is the same height as our photos. Alright, I think that looks good.
Now click on the solid layer and hit Command-D on your keyboard to make one copy. So you should have 2 copies in total. Now we're going to apply motion blur and 3D to all of our clips. So just hold down on the top box and then just drag it down with your keyboard or mouse. Now change from active camera to custom view 1.
So first we want to create a little gap between our 2 photos to designate the front and back. I'm just going to click on the photo that's on the bottom, and I'm going to go down to Transform. Now increase this third position value and you should see a gap start to widen. So I'm going to click on one of the solid photos, go down to Transform, and change the Y rotation to -90. If you have After Effects CC, then you should have snapping, so click on that to enable it. If you have CS, then just try your best to drag it properly into place. I'm just going to drag it to the side. So now as you can see, there's still a little bit of space between this photo and this side. So I'm just going to go to this photo, go down to Transform, and I'm going to increase its third position value until it slides right into place. And there you go, there's no gap.
Now duplicate this solid right here. Change from Custom View 1 to Custom View 3 to have a better view of this side, and just drag the copy over so it snaps right into the other side. Now for this other solid, we're going to go down to Transform, change the X rotation to 90, and also change the Z rotation to 90, so it looks something like this. Then drag it to the top till it snaps right in, and as you can see, it's way too long. So we're going to unlock our scale values and decrease the second one until it fits. Now duplicate this solid layer, and just like we did for the sides, we're going to drag this one down to the bottom. Now we're going to go back to active camera.
Click on the layer at the very top, go to Layer, New, and Null Object. Now highlight all of your clips minus the null object layer and hold down on one of the spirals and drag it into the null object layer. And as you can see, they're now all connected. If you don't have the spiral, just click right here and choose null 1 and it should connect. Make sure to enable 3D on your null object layer. So we're gonna do an X rotation transition, which looks like this. So add your first X rotation keyframe at the very beginning and keep it at 0. Then drag your current time indicator forward to where you want the picture to flip over and you want the second photo to appear. Add another X rotation keyframe and increase it to around here. So you shouldn't really be seeing the second photo yet, you should just be seeing the top solid layer. Drag your time indicator forward again, add another X rotation keyframe, and now increase it until you can see your second photo. As you can see, our photo is upside down. So just go into effects and presets and look up flip and just add that in there. And now it's right side up. Now go back into your null object layer, highlight your keyframes, right click on one of them, go to keyframe assistant and click on easy ease. Make sure you're clicked on at least one of the keyframes and click on your graph editor. Right now I'm on value graph, but we're going to adjust this in terms of speed graph. So click here and change from value to speed. If you're already on speed, of course you don't have to do this. Now we want our graphs to accelerate, but we don't want it to accelerate too quickly. So for this first arc, I'm going to move the yellow knob to the right, but not completely to the right. We want it to have this sort of curve. Same thing with this one, we're gonna move it to the right, but we don't want the slope to be super curved. So your graph should look something like this. We're going to do the same thing with this side, except we're going to move the knobs to the left. Your graph should look something like this. And for this transition, we also want to adjust the Y rotation so that we can see the sides of the cuboid. This part, however, doesn't require any keyframing. All you have to do is decrease your Y rotation value until you see the side of your cuboid. And as you can see, it looks something like this.
So the next transition is this really cool magazine flip. So I have 3 photos on my timeline, and just like I did for our last transition, I'm going to make a new composition and fit them into the dimensions of a rectangle because we want a rectangular magazine. So I'm just gonna speed through this part. So just like I did with the last transition, I'm going to stack them all right on top of each other. Now apply motion blur and 3D to all your 3 clips. So on your timeline, make sure the cover of the magazine is on the very top, the second page is below that, and your last page is below that one. Pretty self-explanatory, I just wanted to clarify that. So first we're gonna animate this first page flipping open. Go down to transform, and we want to adjust the anchor point so that it is right here to the left side, because that's how a book opens. So just decrease this anchor point value until your anchor point is right here. Now just decrease your first position value to drag it right back into place. Now add a keyframe for your Y rotation and keep it at 0. Drag your current time indicator forward a little bit. Add another keyframe, then increase your Y rotation value and it should open like this. How much you want to open it is up to you. I'm just going to do an angle of 120. Now highlight your keyframes, right click, easy ease, and go to your graph editor. Again, I'm going to do this in terms of speed graph. So drag both of your little knobs to the left, but not all the way to the left. So with 3D, nothing is usually ever perfect on the first try, and as you can see, we have some overlap right here where you can see the other page. To fix this, I'm just gonna play around with my position values until it looks the way I want. I'm gonna decrease this first value, and as you can see, it looks good. Similarly, when the page is open, you may see a little gap between the 2 pages, so just keep adjusting your position until it looks the way you want. So now we're gonna animate this second page. Go down to transform. Now we're gonna adjust the anchor point by decreasing the first anchor point value until it's right on top of this square. Then decrease the first position value to drag it back into place. Now we want the second page to start moving once the cover page is already in motion. So we don't want to add our keyframe at the very beginning of the clip like we did for the cover photo. So I'm going to add my first keyframe around here. I'm going to add a Y rotation keyframe and keep it at 0. Then drag your current time indicator to where your first page has fully opened and add another keyframe. We're going to increase it but make it less than 120 so there's still a little bit of a gap between the cover photo and this second photo. So I did plus 80. Easy ease your keyframes. Go to your graph editor and follow the exact same graph as we did in our cover photo. Now it should look something like this. So for this third photo, I'm not going to animate it using 3D. Instead, I'm just going to add an effect called page turn. So in effects and presets, look up page turn. This is not a plugin, so you all should have it. And just drag that in. change bottom right corner to top right corner, and just move this dot around to adjust how you want the page to be folded. I'm gonna do it like that. So we're gonna add our first fold position keyframe when our third photo finally starts coming into view. For me, that's right here. You can just see a little bit of the side. So just add a keyframe, then drag your current time indicator to the end where these pages have stopped moving, and just drag this dot until your page is completely unfolded. Go down to page turn in effects and easy ease your keyframes, and follow my speed graph. Now it should look something like this. Lastly, we are going to animate these 3 photos together. So click on the top photo, go to Layer, New, Null Object, and just like we did last time, highlight all of your clips and attach them to the Null Object layer. Make sure to apply 3D on the Null Object layer. Now go down to Transform and add a keyframe for Y rotation of 0 at the very beginning. Then drag your current time indicator to the end when the third photo is finally in view. Add another Y rotation keyframe and just increase it so that all 3 photos together are kind of at an angle. I'm going to do plus 31. Easy ease your keyframes and follow my graph. And lastly, to top it off, I'm just gonna add a vignette to all of my photos for some shadowing. So just look up vignette in effects and presets. If you have Sapphire, you can use S vignette, but it works the same exact as CC vignette, which you should have even if you don't have Sapphire. So I'm just gonna drag that in. And you can always increase or decrease the amount depending on how much vignette you want. Now it should look something like this. You can also use this null object layer to animate your book as a whole. So if I want it to pop out from the bottom of my screen, I can adjust the position keyframes. If I want it to rotate in, I can adjust the Z rotation keyframes. You can also add a transition at the end. So I could use scale to have it going into a screen pump. Again, I could use Z rotation to have it going into a rotation. The possibilities are endless.
So the next transition is this doll box transition. So I'm just gonna drag a photo onto my timeline, and this will act as the center of the box or the doll. In order to achieve this effect, we have to mask the person. So I'm gonna click on my pen tool and just mask around Lily. Now go down to mask and change your mask feather to 8. Now for my photo specifically, you can still see some of the background right here. This may not be the same for your case, but you might encounter something like this, so I'm gonna show you how to get rid of it. So pre-compose your picture, and now make a mask outlining this area right here. Now go down to mask, click inverted, and change your mask feather to 8. And as you can see, it's gone. So go back to your pointer tool, and now we have to make the sides of the box, and we do this using a solid layer like we did in the other transition. So go up to Layer, New, Solid, and choose white as your color. Go down to Transform and change the opacity to 25.
Unlock your scale values and decrease the first one so it's in the shape of a rectangle.
The wideness of your box is completely up to you. I'm just going to do this. Now hit S on the photo of your person and decrease the scale and adjust the position so that they fit behind the box. So it looks something like this. Now I'm going to apply motion blur and 3D to both my photo and my solid layer. Now I'm going to hit Command D on my solid layer to duplicate it 3 times, giving me 4 copies in total for all the sides of my box. We don't need to add a top, and depending on what transition you're doing, you may need to add a bottom, but in my experience, it's not really necessary. So now change your view from active camera to custom view 1. I'm going to go from top down. So go down to Transform and increase your third position value so that it is parallel to the rest. So it should look something like this. Now go to the solid layer below that, go to Transform, and change the Y rotation to -90 degrees. Make sure you still have snapping enabled, and drag it right into place. I'm gonna go down to our next solid layer, go down to Transform, and again make the Y rotation at -90, and drag that into place on the other side. Lastly, for the photo of your person, hit P on your keyboard to go to position, and just increase the third position value to move it more back into the box. So now I'm gonna add these dark blue accents. I'm gonna go up to Layer, New, Solid, and I'm going to do a deep blue color. So we need this to be the same width as our white solid layers. So just check the scale of one of your white solid layers. So for the first scale value, it has a value of 59.7, so I'm just going to do the same first scale value for our blue layer. So now it should be the same width. Now you can adjust the height by pulling down on this top square and just compressing it. And now I'm just going to adjust it into place. I'm going to enable motion blur and 3D on this blue layer. Now I'm going to duplicate it twice to have 3 copies in total, because we're going to put a logo in the front, so we don't need this in the front. Switch from active camera back to custom view 1, and again I'm going to work from top down. So for this one I'm going to go down to transform, and I'm going to change the Y rotation to -90. Then I'm going to drag it to one of the sides until it snaps into place. For our next one, again go down to transform, change the Y rotation to -90, and drag it into place on the other side. And for our last one, again go to transform, and just increase the third position value to move it to the back. Go back to active camera. In the description, I provided 2 logo PNGs, one for Beauty and the Beast and one for Barbie. These are just the only 2 that I've ever used, but you can do literally any logo you want. You can do Bratz, Monster High. Shout out to Monster High, I used to be obsessed with them.
So I'm just gonna drag in a photo of my logo. I'm gonna hit S on my keyboard to decrease the scale and adjust the position to drag it into place. Make sure to enable motion blur and 3D on this logo. Now I'm just increasing the scale of my photo and the position because I realize it's kind of small. Now we're going to add a null object layer so we can move all of this in unison. So go to Layer, New, Null Object, and connect all of your clips to the null object layer. And make sure to enable 3D on your null object. So I'm going to go down to Transform, and the first thing I want to do is decrease the scale a little bit. Now we have to adjust the anchor point so it's right in the middle of the box. So change from Active Camera to Custom View 1, and increase your third anchor point value until this lines up with this intersection right here. Now go back to active camera. So for a doll box, I typically like to adjust the Y rotation. So at the very beginning, add your first Y rotation keyframe and increase this to some value. You can also decrease it depending on which direction you want it to come in from. So I'm doing 182. Then drag your current time indicator forward, add another keyframe, and bring it back to 0. Last step, I'm also going to adjust the X rotation, but we don't have to add any keyframes, so it's super simple. I'm just going to increase it a little bit. I'm going to do +18, and there you go. I hope you guys enjoyed.